This was where we left off last time. We had our two boxes. Those boxes represented margin, border, padding, and then content for each one of these. So let's talk about a little bit more about block elements and inline elements. These are both block elements, and you can see that if I drag the outer wall of this, no matter what I do, even though I put a width on there, it's going to take up the entire width of whatever the container is that it's in there, except for the margin. So we put a little margin on there, and that's why that is not going from full wall to full wall, even though I said I only wanted the width to be, say, up to here. It ignores that width because the block element, the width is already standard on that. So let's go ahead and do a couple of changes. Let's go into our Sublime, and let's go ahead and add to our things and change these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change these, the display property of this to be inline, and I'll do the same thing with the second box. I want it to be inline. Whoops, but it's got to be display inline. Alright, so we're going to change these now from the boxes or the divs being a block element into an inline element, and see how that changes everything. So we'll do File and Save, and then I'll go back and I'll refresh the page, and look, well we had a couple of problems here. Well, not problems, but notice that they are now side by side. It now is using the width property to make a width, and since they both since it's not large enough to force this one down in there because we have room. Now if I shrink this enough, I don't know if I can, yeah. If I shrink it enough, you can see that it really messes everything up. We'll go ahead and fix that a little bit later. But notice we're also missing some of the page. It's up above there, and that's because inline elements go along the bottom part of that element. So if I go ahead and right mouse click on this and I inspect the element, so we can see that if we're looking at this div, you can see that the bottom of that element, every time I let's see. Alright, so you can see that this right here is right there on the bottom of the element, and since it has a height of 50 pixels, then the height will end up going above that window. Sometimes we want to do that, but in this case I would rather not have that happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back, let's go ahead and get rid of this and go back to our Sublime, and on this one I'm going to change it from inline to inline dash block. So it's going to have the attributes of inline, allowing me to change the width or have a width less than the spanning the entire container. Oops. But I also want to have it so that it goes along the top rather than the bottom of the element. So I do File and Save, and then I'll go ahead and refresh, and there we go. So when I refresh it now the margin comes here, because if we inspect this element now, okay, and I go to my div, you can see that now it is it's right in the middle of, I wish I could make this thing, there we go. It's right in the middle of the element rather than along the bottom border. So that's why we're not going to be losing anything on the top margin. And if we do the other one, it's the same way. So as we see, it is margin, border, padding, content. All right, so let's go and get rid of this too, and let's go ahead and add an inline or a couple of inline elements. If I go to a website called Placehold.it, all I have to do in order to get a different size box, so this is a 150 by 100. So if I change that and just say 200, whoops, not 2000, 200 times 100, and then I press enter, it's going to give me a bigger box. So I'm just going to use this. We're going to put it on there by having it look at that website. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go back into here, into my page, and underneath my div before my closed body, I'm going to type in img and then press tab. It's going to say where is the source, and I'm going to say is this. What I want to do is I want to have actually two pictures, so I'm going to do copy and then paste. So now I'm going to have two pictures, one under the other, but we're going to see that because they're inline. Image is an inline property. When I take a look at it, let's go back to our box and refresh. There are my properties there. So let's see what happens when I grab, whoops, not that. Gotta see where, look what happens. So when I drag it, when I have it like this, it's they're stacked, but that's only because of the size. As I move out the wall, because these are now all four of them are inline, they're all going to stack right next to each other, just like that. Alright, so, but we can change those properties too. So if I go back to Sublime and go up to our style, well, I can't go up to the style because, well, I guess I can. Let's try this. Let's go up there. And actually, I wanted to show you something else, so let's go back down here again. I'm going to give each of these a class equals, call it box it, because we want to box these. I'm going to do the same thing here. So it has two properties. It has image, has this source, and you have to have source in there. And then we're also going to give it a class equals box it. Now both of these have the same class, so I can come up here and now program once and have each of them inherit that same one. So since this is a class, it's going to be a dot box it parenthesis. Okay, and then I'm going to change the display on this because it's an inline property right now, and we'll change this into block. We'll see how that changes. Okay, I'll do file save, go back to my Chrome, and then refresh. Boom, now they're one on top of each other. Now if I drag this in and out, they don't move back up, and that's because they are now a block element. In fact, let's go back just so that they look a little bit better. And also on here, let's do a margin bottom of 10 pixels. So that means each one is going to have, we're only going to see one of the margins, but let's do file and save and refresh. So we go back and refresh it now. Now we have a little bit of space between the two. Let's go ahead and inspect these elements now and see how everything looks. So if I inspect the element, alright, go down a little bit. If I go to the image one, you can see that this is now the size of the container. You can't notice it because, well, I guess if we put a background color, you'd be able to see that entire thing. And then if we move down, we can see that this one is there, also spanning the entire one. But now that these are inline, if I go to that, you can see that they no longer, well, gosh, it no longer now takes up the entire side. It only takes up that one little space on there. Let's see. So okay, let's go ahead and let's try this. Let's close this. Try one last thing before we run out of time. Let's go back and in box it. Let's change the background color. Oh, dang it. Background color. Oh, come on. Background. I'll just tell the whole thing since it's not a color. And make this yellow. And let's do file and save. And let's go back and refresh. Okay, well that didn't work. I was thinking it would go all the way along the back because that's where the element is, but not really, because the background color is not of that. The element type is for this image. All right, so that's it. That's changing, having things that are block elements and changing them into inline, seeing the unforeseen consequences of that, changing them to inline blocks so that now they are no longer hidden by the top margin, and then creating two pictures and then changing those from inline, which is their natural way of being displayed, to block so that they now have switched from where the box is.